Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe. Java.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Just got to do a tech thing a few seconds ago. Listen, we're not going to do a bunch of greetings this morning. We have our mayor with us this morning. We also have through our partnership with ABCD, someone to come in and talk with us about women's cardiovascular health. And so, stress is a part of that. And it's so interesting that we have someone coming into the room that's managing a lot. And so we are going to bring our mayor in. We are going to do, a little bit of some speed round things. I've previously said to the mayor, hey, this year you're a candidate, speed round a little bit on some things, but speed round today is because there is really a lot to discuss and from national politics to local things. And so, Mayor, first of all, how are you doing? Please greet the folks and say good morning. We can see you kind of on, I presume, a little bit on chill because you got the ponytail.
It feels like the opposite of chill around here. I'm starting out the day at home this morning. I have like back to back internal planning Zooms, other virtual meetings, and then I have a block from afternoon all the way to late at night that I'm going to be out and about. So the choice was either be late and do the thing where you only curl like the front part of your hair for Zoom, or just come and see the Java fam as I am. But I also super overdue for a haircut. So I'm getting one tomorrow. Anyway.
Now, Mayor, if the women in my life with long hair, they know me, I would encourage you not, because it's something about me and hair. And when y'all grow it out, it just, anyway,
but
we have a lot to.
Here's the thing that maybe if you don't have the lived experience with this, you don't understand. It's when you cut hair for this length.
Did you say if you don't have the lived experience? I mean.
Okay. So from my lived experience, when you cut hair for this length, that's a different kind of shape than you do. And then by the time it gets to this long, because you're several months past when you needed a haircut, you can keep it long, but you just need to redo a little bit. So we're gonna freshen it up tomorrow.
I'm glad we had that moment. And as much as people will troll, it just shows that with all of this, Mayor, the human side, of who a lot of our elected leaders are. And so and also I like to offer time where our electeds can, no pun intended, can come and let their hair down. So you did, Mayor, let's just jump right into a few very serious things. And I'm glad we were able to have that light moment. And I'm going to try to prioritize these based on what I'm seeing on social media, hearing from community. As I tell you, once your flyer goes up, my inbox is filled with unsolicited suggestions. And so, but also balancing where I think you need the time to really give some clarity to some things. And so I'm going to give you a choice to start either where, and this is one of my areas, violence prevention. And a lot's going on. We had the unfortunate incident the other evening, and this may take you back to some years ago where there were shots fired, and I believe a young woman was hit, or a girl, doesn't matter, on a field where Pop Warner was playing. And then the other thing is, and kind of different, but correlate on this false narrative of, violence due to our immigrant community. Two major things I want to talk about is violence prevention, the update on the new infrastructure, and then some conversation about yesterday, the presser you did, and this bullying, threatening that we understand that this administration is doing. And so feel free to go however you want to go with both of those, because there is some minimal correlation on the violence piece. So any updates about that?
Yeah. Definitely. And I'll say, first of all, thank you for the role that you've played in being a sounding board for me and to help push and guide the city along in a bunch of the different steps. I know we've been having this conversation for 15 years now, and even in recent weeks and months, there have been some major organizational changes with Dr. Yablo, who's been formerly the mayor's office senior advisor for violence prevention and community safety, now overseeing, maintaining that role as my direct link. And 10 p.m. 12 a.m., 1 a.m. Phone call update on what's happening in our communities, but then also officially overseeing at the Boston Public Health Commission a lot of the programs and resources that are available, so that everything is kind of under one umbrella between the SSYI, the Safe and Successful Youth Initiative, the Men's Health Program. There are a number of ways in which the city has already been addressing violence as a public health issue with specific programs, with specific long-standing relationships in community, and that has to keep going no matter what season we're in, summer or winter, no matter what the sort of need is out in the community. We're pushing forward as much as we can. There has been in the last few weeks, right? We all of July was actually, compared to previous years, one of the safest summers, one of the safest July months that we had, and August definitely picked up. It's not something that data and numbers and statistics directly show the sort of sense of fear and worry and concern that can be in community, and certainly the trauma that is felt in community when it's a young child who's been impacted, even though, thank God, non-life threatening or many of these incidences, we are there, and we treat every single incident as one that needs to be stopped and prevented, not just those that result in lives lost and the deepest kind of trauma. So
Mayor, if I can jump in, if you don't mind, in such a relevant issue, and I hate a tone of rushing this along, but we got a lot. And also, I've often shared with you publicly, once you get the mayor into a space, everything starts connecting.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So my 10 seconds is like,
yes.
We are seeing the numbers up this year when it comes to lives lost to gun violence. We have seen an uptick in situations with domestic violence where horrifically weapons have been involved. And we are seeing an uptick in situations where scooters have been involved. And those are two, this is not coming from the police department and sort of official messaging. This is just as I get the updates from each of these reports. These are some trends that I am noticing in recent months. We also, however, the number of shooting victims is actually down this year, not counting fatal ones versus non-fatal, but just total shooting victims is down. So the numbers really vary, and we track every single category very closely to try to understand where exactly we should be putting the intervention, the resources, and prevention.
One of the things when you say looking into a mayor, if I can just end this part here and then correlate it to some clarity around violence, and as it relates to our immigration community, we can talk about your response to DOJ is, I heard you, though in a formal role, you implied that you want a community embedded in this infrastructure redesign. And so I just would hope, and I talked about this yesterday, no cap for you or whatever, but you don't find out some things until they're at a point where, and it's just, if you could convey to the powers that be that you want community embedded in this new design of the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep an eye out for, we have been, and under Isaac's leadership, there have just been, it's a given that as we form our plans, whether it's for summer safety or to plan around young people in particular, and how to make sure we're providing opportunities in the right periods of time after school ends, but before summer programs start, and then after summer programs end, but before school starts. That has all been, there have been lots and lots of community listening sessions. Our Village Vibes program has been another way where we're trying to bring people together in new and creative ways, just to hear from voices who maybe haven't been as involved. And, even Real Talk, Real Change. There's just many ways that we're trying to create the opportunity. So these decisions aren't happening just in an office somewhere. It's not even happening just in response to a particular instance or situation, but really proactive planning across the community.
I'll just end this part with this here, Mayor. You referenced to the fact of the 15 years you and I have been in this space and acknowledge the contributions. Those contributions would like to continue to happen in a manner with that group over there. So, Mayor, I'll move us on to something very serious. And you talked about in the numbers, domestic violence. I've been saying that where, tariffs and all this going on in Washington, my concern has been, and let me know if you agree here, that a lot of the impact we're not maybe going to see demonstrated until the fall. Holidays. I said tariffs and turkeys and things like that. And we hear Mira in the background. So if you need to pause for a second and be mom, just let me know. And that's fine. I put myself just on screen. And so you're getting her. Hey, Mira.
It's okay. She'll sit for a second.
She had her ponytails the other day. And so, you mentioned domestic violence. We know that when things get hard and the impact of poverty and things, people get, sometimes in a survival mode. And so I'm setting a stage here to talk about the impact of the potential of what that letter from DOJ said to you in your response. And so can you give a synopsis? Can you name the impact of the, potential of money being taken away from the city budget, from the state budget, potentially Massachusetts, and then there are some people in Boston that receive direct grants, community, block development. So this one, I that we may not speed around as much. And then in there, the last piece, and I'll remind you if need to, some of the sentiment I received is that, this is an important issue. Boston is a welcoming city, but I think you remember that there was also a sentiment, a lot from the Black community, that some of the same needs and things that were met for the immigrant community, there have been folks here who have not had the needs met. So maybe ending with a little bit of that. And I know some of that is state, but I had to share with some folks this morning that everything ain't the mayor. So DOJ, where are we? What's at risk? And then also what's the buffer that you and the team are working on as well?
Yeah. And I want to start with the last part of what you said, because although most of the conversation in the kind of MAGA world has been around immigrants and sanctuary cities and, these cities that are horrible, dangerous, dirty places because there are, the horrible terms that they use to talk about immigrant community members, all of which is against what the actual numbers say, that immigrants and undocumented community members are actually less likely than the average population to participate in crimes, to be convicted. Anyway, so not only is it just false,
that. Thank you.
First and foremost, the reason I believe that they are targeting cities that tend to be home for larger immigrant populations is that these are the same cities that are home to thriving Black communities, right? Cities that are home to people with disabilities, cities that are home to the thriving LGBTQ residents. So it's not like this is the only community they care about enough to target. It's that by going after this angle, they get all of it, right? They get all of our communities who are historically marginalized, who have been underinvested in, who have been struggling in systems that excluded people for a long time. And so when we talk about making America great, quote unquote, again, therefore going back to what it used to be when people weren't included at all, that is the crux of it. It was never just about immigrants. It's always been about finding the sort of, like, I don't know what the right term is, finding the vulnerabilities in the structure where you can like push a little bit here, push a little bit there, and then the whole thing crumbles.
Yep. Right? Yep.
So when we go so hard around why Boston is a home for everyone, of course, I mean our immigrant community members, but by everyone, I mean everyone. And that's what I was trying to make clear yesterday when we had the conversation on City Hall Plaza. This is about standing up to say, our laws in terms of the specific Boston Trust Act are not just the choice of one individual person who, because I come from an immigrant family, I want to do this, and I I'm forcing everyone to do it. These are the laws on the books at the city level and the state level. The Boston Trust Act has been in place since 2014, so long before, or maybe it was 20. Anyway, it's been in place for over a decade now. I think it was 2014, and we've done fine in that period when it comes to safety. Right, obviously, a lot of work to do, as we were just talking about. But whether it's supporting Black and Brown community members, whether it's supporting our trans and LGBTQ community members, or institutions that are being challenged, like colleges, hospitals, universities, places that are doing research that might counter the particular mindset that they have about what is real and who belongs. Our entire city is under attack, and cities like us that tend to be places where people can come together. There's a lot of diversity, and you get to know each other, and you make policies together, not excluding this community or that community, because we all live together in cities. That is what they're trying to break down. And so we're standing up, not just to say back off of immigrant communities, not just to say back off of Boston, but cities are places that make the entire country, every American in this country, whether you live in a city or not, you're actually better off in terms of your health, your well-being, your economic prospects because of what is happening in cities. And the law is on our side. Unlike the Trump administration, Boston follows the law. And we're very clear about what that means in terms of funding, too. There's been a lot of threats made. Many of them are clearly unconstitutional, right? We have $300 million of federal funding that the city relies on in our budget every year. Most of these are grants that we've gotten for at least 20 years, sometimes even more. That's why the census counts so much, is that is the way where a lot of the money from the federal government gets allocated to cities based on your population and therefore your share of what happens. And when we are undercounted, we get less. But anyway, that's a separate issue. But the point is that it's not given out based on who the president likes most or who bends the knee and who, kisses the ring or whatever. It is based on Congress creating a program that gets funding out based on population. And so
is there still a Congress? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
My congresswoman is fighting for us. I know that.
But I mean, just their functionality. That's a Java After Dark. Maybe at some point we can have you come in for a Java After Dark. Mayor, this is very serious. And one of the things that if you could just talk to for a couple of seconds is we are at risk for some financial impacts if this does succeed. We know our AG is filing. I'm sure you're filing. Just one clarifying note. You did study law, right?
Yes, I am a lawyer. I
So I just needed to clarify that. Okay. So Mayor, based on that, very quickly, if you could really do 30 seconds, because we got about 9-10 minutes left. What is in place in case, if I may ask you, if that funding got pulled tomorrow, basic city services, a lot of our nonprofits that are partnered with, that get some from you, some from the state, some from direct, what's at risk, and what morally are you putting buffers, just in case buffers in place? Okay. Can you tell us?
So each budget is decided through the city council's process with our administration, and it gets voted on by June 30th of every calendar year. To start the official quote unquote fiscal year, July 1st, that runs until the next June 30th. And so we just went through this process. Chair Brian Worrell, chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and of course, City Council President Ruthie Lujan and all the councilors worked with us, where we really tightened the belt on the city this year. And it wasn't because the city, through our own actions and our own revenue sources, isn't doing well and isn't stable, but it's that there was so much uncertainty coming from the federal government that we had to plan a lot of cushion just in case. And so we did take longtime positions that had been vacant for a while and remove them from the budget. We ended up saving about 500 positions, equivalent funding, to just tighten things. This was our way of making sure we were protecting city services. So we did not have layoffs. We did not do a hiring freeze, because a hiring freeze is, in fact, basically future layoffs, right? A hiring freeze means when someone leaves a job, you don't fill that position after they leave. You just leave it.
That's similar to a layoff.
Then you're actually cutting down on the ability of city services. So we didn't do any of that, but we did say we're not going to grow. We're not adding any new positions. We're not adding any new headcount. And we're actually sort of slimming down what every single department had. It's not fun. It's not pleasant, especially when I know our departments are being asked to do more and more because the need is more and more, thanks to other levels of government, the federal level walking away. So we have tightened the belt to prepare for this. But again, we do not believe that the vulnerability for the city of Boston is in the range of hundreds of millions of dollars, because Most of these are congressionally appropriated and legally cannot be taken away by an executive order just from the president. We already have gone and sued successfully on one grant, the federal continuum of care housing grant that we use to address homelessness. They tried to say this year you can only will only give you the grant if you promise not to serve the trans community and Black and brown residents and, you know, anti-DEI, this and that and the other. We went to court and sued, and the court backed us up. And so we have access to those $40-some million of funds, just as we always did, just as we always have for decades. The same thing has happened. Can I make one note on a public safety grant? Because there's been some confusion here. A similar thing is happening. This is the UASI grant, the UASI grant. It's the Regional Counterterrorism Grant funding.
Okay.
And there was some question because this year, again, they're trying to just squeeze from every place. They said in order to get this grant that you've gotten for 20 plus years, you have to spend 10% of the grant funding on border security and addressing the border crisis. They said, for example, cooperating with ICE. And that's really been their carrot to try to get communities who are on the fence or this or that to cooperate with ICE. And so we said, we are still applying for this money because this is money that we need and use. And if we don't have this money, we're going to have to pull from somewhere else anyway. However, we're only applying because we already did the internal legal analysis that we already use 10% of these funds on harbor patrol and harbor security, for example. That is our border in Massachusetts. So we believe we satisfy the terms of this grant. It's a regional one that serves the entire area. It's for emergency management. It's for radio systems across the region. It's for harbor security and things like that. And we will not, and again, cannot by our laws cooperate with ICE in the way that they're trying to force us to do so because of the Boston Trust Act. So we're going to apply for the funds as we always have. If we get rejected, then we will go to court again and sue.
Mayor, one quick question, because I got a call about this. And if you could, I know it's hard and we got a couple of minutes, but one of the people who have committed crimes, is this thing that away from the tone of what you just said, we don't, if there are crimes committed, proven and whatnot, we're not cooperating. Because
No. So it's not a shield at all. So everything that they're talking about, when they say, okay, this is why sanctuary city
in 30 seconds,
confusing.
Mayor, please, if you can.
Yeah. So when many of our community members, so first of all, there's no legal term of what sanctuary city actually means. It's not a specific definition. It is just a phrase that's used. Many of our community members use that phrase proudly to describe us because we are a city that is welcoming for immigrant community members, for all of our community members. And we don't ask about your immigration status. We don't ask for papers, you know, whether you are registering your child for school or getting a library card or when you're being stopped by the police because you were speeding or something like that. That is never part of how we deliver services, but it's at the same time also never a part of how we hold people accountable. So if you commit a crime, if you commit harm in the community, regardless of your immigration status, we are holding you accountable. And that's how you have to have safety and belonging. But when the other side, you know, when MAGA world uses the term sanctuary city, they mean this is a quote unquote sanctuary for criminals and you're not prosecuting people and this and that. That is completely false. Whenever there's a criminal warrant, because the court has heard and decided that there is probable cause, then we go out and enforce it, no matter what agency that's coming from. Even if it's from out of state or out of country, there are places where, for example, BPD worked with the FBI even a couple of weeks ago on a major human trafficking case that led to a number of arrests that happened. And so there is collaboration happening with the federal government, but on criminal cases where there's a warrant and the legal system has established that.
All right, Mayor, we thank you for that clarity. And I will just say, this is why it's important that accuracy of information is key. And you understand the context of this next statement. We got a couple of minutes left to squeeze in quite a few things. That, you know, false narratives and sound bites don't tell the truth and the whole story. Excuse me, I'll take 5 seconds because
I wish I had my, yes.
So a couple of other things, Mayor, and a little bit of a good news, but it's going to come with a caveat of an incident, experience of a constituent. So very quickly in the next 3-4 minutes, we have to squeeze in a few more things. One is easier permitting.
Yep.
food trucks, and then I have to run a constituent issue by you that we need to bring some attention to, because I think when you hear about this, you're going to get a little aggravated, because I know again, some of the things don't make it up until it's in crisis. So easier permitting and food trucks, and mayor, I'm going to have to hold you to about 45 seconds or a minute.
All I will say is that even though what we to do to fight against our federal administration right now gets a lot of attention and it's incredibly important, it's life safety, it's everything right now. At the same time, at the city level in government, what I love most about city government is that we have to do it all. We have to be at every level, and the important stuff that we're working on that doesn't get the attention actually gets me really excited, which is permitting, all the details. If you want to open a business and you need those licenses, if you want to, do renovations and add a deck on your home, or add an ADU so that you can build an in-law unit and move your elderly parent in with you. If you want to host a special event in a public park and get the food safety permits to serve food and all that, that all has to come through the city with a bunch of permits, licenses, and all that. This has been a long journey for me. When I first worked for Mayor Menino, it was about just getting things online.
So can I just clarify one thing, Mayor? Because this morning I wound up calling into Urban Heat because I found myself needing to clarify that this is decades old red tape type systems that were, and we love our mayor, but remember, we didn't have voicemail. And we didn't have stuff back in the day. And so with all due respect to our wonderful Thomas and Menino, I just want to say that this isn't something that just happened when you got inaugurated in November of 2021.
Boston's notoriously complicated when it comes to permitting. And it makes sense, right? Every permit exists because at some point in time, someone got hurt by a situation and we decided we needed to make sure that that would never happen again. But because Boston is so historic, we still have permits on the books where restaurants have to get a special permit to have milk or eggs. You have to get a special permit for a TV to have dance. And this is back in the time where I was like, oh, it's scandalous that there's dancing, or someone got sick from milk or eggs, 100 years ago. So we have these things layered up that we're now starting to really peel back and combine and make sure that we're updating this for the 2020s, as opposed to still, so the permit for restaurants is still called the common victualer's license, right? You can imagine when that name was first created. So now things are online, inspections are easy. Starting in this next cycle, businesses that have under 50 people in their seats or whatever in their space, and don't serve alcohol will not have to do renewals anymore of the most annoying kind. So they will save money every single year, save time, don't have to come into City Hall or 1010 Mass Ave. Different things with the fire department inspections or with building safety. We're also finding ways to make it simpler and easier and to do all of it so that people won't have to come in person. And that way you can focus your time on actually running your business or building your home or hosting that special event that you want to have.
One last question, and I'm already a minute over time. I'm getting ready to bring our guest in from ABCD. I'm going to ask you a serious question that we always check in with you about, but just with a little clinical undertone. Yes or no, Mayor, is a part of this, and this I got to get a yes or no. One of the things that in permitting was the difference between a DJ who typically caters to hip hop, Black and brown communities versus live music. Live music used to have an easier permitting process. This came up earlier. DJ Mastermind was talking about it last month when you were on. Is that part of not only the logistics, but some of the policies? Is that one of them that's on your radar?
Yes. So in fact, the only reason there's a difference is because when I was a city councilor, I wrote an ordinance to make it easier for live music. And so this was the first time that I wrote and passed an ordinance that actually got rid of some permitting. There used to be a lot more restrictive permitting. And then we would, in other cities, you might see someone just in a bookstore playing guitar softly or someone doing live music. And we never saw that in Boston because it was so hard. You have to have a hearing, you have to have an entertainment license, this and that. So we changed it. And the reason why we didn't do DJs with that is because we heard a lot from the community that they were worried about noise levels. So it's a lot. If you can, the rules say that if it's live music with only one microphone and fewer than 5 performers, artists, then you don't need permits. But and we should go take another look at the DJ situation. But I think the worry was that with a DJ, it could be extremely loud or quiet, and there's no way to really sort of know that ahead of time.
If we can figure out a way to cover that, Mayor, because that may be a cloud, and in charter and whatnot, there are certain languages and things that put in place, because the impact mostly on that noise concern, which is real, is it impacts Black and brown.
Right. Yeah.
Sort of events. So, Mayor, we got to go. I'm going to bring my guest in, and as they're coming in, we're bringing in Maureen Scott, who is the Director of Health Services at ABCD, and also Dr. Sophie from Martha Elliott Health Center and also Children's Hospital. We discussed a lot. I'm trying to make sure that I got everything, the major things. Last thing, very quickly, for the Culture Week, new edition. That is happening next week. Just very quickly, for the Culture Week, the game, HBCU. Also, are you in favor with the satellite HBCU coming to Boston? Mayor, you got to do that in 1 minute. And Doc, I know I'm putting the mayor under stress right now.
I'm not going to take the time of these incredible guests. Thank you both so much for all that you do for the community. And I just flowers and gratitude and ultimate respect for all the ways in which you take care of our community members. Yes, to all of the above on culture. It'll be the first time that Boston is hosting this HBCU kickoff classic Labor Day weekend. And we're very, very excited that as part of the lead up to all of that, there will finally be an official honoring of New Edition. And we will, I know there's a lot of conversations in place about how to make sure it's not just a one-time thing and a one-time event, but that there's deeper connections. And I know many are working on this in city government, whether it's Councilor Worrell or John Borders from our special events and tourism office. There's a lot of people thinking this through and figuring out how we can continue to be a long-term platform for making sure everyone is welcome and included in our city.
Mayor, last question we didn't do this that much in the beginning. We're getting ready to talk with Dr. Sophia Maureen about cardiovascular health for women. So as someone who, manages a lot, manages stress, is a mom, is a mayor, is a caregiver, is a wife, and is just a woman trying to live, how are you handling things to make sure that your cardiovascular health is at its best?
I probably should go now because I don't have too much good stuff to say on this.
Mayor,
it is in my intention to start
I'm sorry.
Getting back into, I don't know when the last time I felt like I was actually in full fighting shape was. But, it's hard after having a baby. Mira is 7 months old now. And I finally, my knees started feeling better. So now I should be able to get back into it. But any tips I would love on how to, when you have a very complicated schedule, find some time. What are the best ways? What are the best things that I could be doing? I will be all ears and would be grateful for your advice.
Dr. Sophie, I'm going to do you like I did the mayor. 15 seconds of one thing the mayor can do to help ease stress and 15 seconds.
I would say block your schedule. Give yourself 30 minutes or an hour and, just do something relaxing just for yourself.
Mayor, thank you. I did not mean. I'm sorry, but I was a little bit intentional because I know.
No, I'm just teasing. I need to. This is a really important conversation. I'm so thankful.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will be in touch. We'll get you some notes that come from this today. I'll get them over to the team. And I got to get you a constituent concern about a pothole. A young sister, $2,000, and she's in a fight with Eversource in Public Works about who reimburses. And I know as a counselor, you're probably aware. Can I get that?
You can connect us offline.
I will. She's actually the woman is handling the Gospel Fest choir. So
okay,
I'll try to get her connected. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Maureen and Dr. Sophie, I am so sorry. But I think you already know, especially with that federal piece we had to cover, and I won't take y'all into that because y'all are, sometimes federal recipients. So first of all, thank you both for being here. What I'd like to do, I've learned some things in a couple of years. I want to give us just maybe a 30-second commercial break, and we'll come back and we're going to talk about cardiovascular health. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be back with you in just about, let me get a good, here we go. We'll be back with you in just about 1 minute.
I'm a very sensitive person, and I feel the pain of my people. They know me, they call on me, and I assure them that I'm not a provider, but I am one who cares. I always say to them, well, it's better to know than not to know, because if you know, you can do something about it. Think about the loved ones around you. Think about the ones that love seeing you come through that door. Take the step and get tested. That's it.
Save lives and get screened for colon cancer. For more information, visit boston.gov/cancer.
Thank you to my guests and everyone. If you're just joining us, we just finished with Mayor Wu. Very intense session. And we are bringing in, through our partnership with ABCD Health Services, Dr. Sophie from Martha Elliott Health Center, and also Maureen Scott, who is not a stranger to the Java Cafe. If you all remember, we had cuffing season, and we're now a little low-key in the Summer Love piece for our influencers that came out now just about a couple of months ago. But just a quick tease on that. Well, we'll talk about that after. We're going to bring Maureen and also Dr. Sophie into the cafe to talk about women's cardiovascular health. And so, Maureen, if you don't mind, if you could greet the audience, and then in there, if you could let us know why, because you're our partner, and you suggested this topic, and I believe it is associated with an Affinity Week, but at the same time with so much going on, and especially let's talk about our women within the immigrant community who are managing things, women, period, that when life is lifing. And so we know that for you, why was it important to stick with this topic for this Affinity Week?
Hi, I'm Maureen, and I'm the Director of Health Services, as Jimmy said. I thought, I spoke with Dr. Allende Richter for many, trying to get her on this show because she is so knowledgeable, and we do have a really good collegial relationship. She works at Martha Elliott Health Center, which is one of our funded subrecipient sites for family planning funding. And she did suggest the cardiovascular health, and I thought that was a really good subject because as a women's health nurse practitioner, for many years I prescribed hormonal contraceptives. You don't think of the young woman, the adolescent, the younger woman as having cardiac problems, but the risk factors start early in life. And that's what's important. And that's what I'm hoping that Dr. Allende Richter will touch on today, because we don't think about them as being the population that is at risk for heart attack and stroke. You always think about older people, high blood pressure, but many of the risk factors do start at a young age. And also, we don't consider the familial risk factors that come along with it.
The familial now,
like the genetic, the biological.
Familial, genetic, family. I learned. So you all know that our wonderful partner, I think the way the protection on the laptops are set up is that my platform gets blocked. So you may see Maureen pop out. Because
I pop in and out.
it's just, listen, you could pop in and pop out as much as you need and want to. But thank you for, teaching me a new word today. I believe in increasing my vocabulary. And so Dr. Sophie, and I'm saying Dr. Sophie because I got an email, and my partners know that I am terrible at pronunciation. So I've been sticking to Dr. Sophie until I hear you say it. Then I'm going to say it right, because it's important to, say our names correctly. So Dr. Sophie, please introduce yourself, say your whole name a little bit slow so I can say it right and pay that respect to the doctor, greet the audience, and I will ask you, by your observation and treatment and your patient load, how would you describe the status of women's heart health? We say cardiovascular, layman's terms, women's heart health now these days?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Sophie Alien, director. I am a general pediatrician by training, and with a focus in adolescent health and weight management. I work at Boston Children's Hospital in their community health center, and my the my interest here is really because, as Maureen said, cardiovascular the state of cardiovascular health among women is actually pretty sad, in the sense that it's the number one cause of death in this patient population, and usually presents differently. The risk factor are different. In part, I mean, the major part is because of biological differences, sex differences between men and women. We do have risk all along our life, based on our lifestyle, but also through puberty, pregnancy, and menopause due to hormonal fluctuation.
And let's get ready to talk about that, because I have my notes here just because we're in a clinical space. And so I'm going to try to keep us focused. But to hear Maureen talk about, the younger women, I think that is interesting. And also to consider, and it's a bit of a generalization, but we know that our young women have various high risk maybe behaviors as teenagers, and so sometimes that can include experimenting with substances. It can include, and we're going to talk about this, smoking tobacco, and these are contributors to heart health. And I will say, as Maureen said, we talked to the mayor about this, but there was this notion when I was a youth worker that young people don't get stressed. Young people, it's easy for them. And so I just wanted to name that as we get ready to have this conversation, that you all are really inclusive of all women, but there's going to be a focus on our younger women as well. And so I one of the things here, I guess you have to have a baseline of when you say knowing your numbers, or when a clinician says that, is that having an idea of what, and are you referring to blood pressure? When there are things, when clinicians say know your numbers, what does that mean, and how does a patient begin to monitor their cardiovascular health?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think I will just take a little step back, right? There's one term that you use, when you introduce me, is that you mentioned the term cardiovascular health.
Yes.
It's actually very accurate and very timely, because the American Heart Association is really making an effort and really wants to promote cardiovascular health as opposed to cardiovascular risk. So they really want to put a more positive approach to that. And so with that, cardiovascular health has several components. The other component that we worry immediately, as physician, when we see a patient, we look at the blood pressure, it's high. We look at the blood work, the hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker of our glucose metabolism, is high, right? And then on the other end, there are the things that we can do, to lower our risk, right? As part of our lifestyle. So when it comes to cardiovascular health and knowing, the state of our health, yes, it is important to be aware of what are the critical components. So the critical component are the lipid profile. It is our sugar, our glucose level. It is our blood pressure, which is really vital to a heart, right? It's important to maintain, a healthy blood pressure, to allow the heart to work and supply our body, at the time when we need it, and just that maintenance, right? And then, there is the weight, right? The weight is always a sticky point. It is really hard. Maureen did mention some familial, difference there as well that makes some people more prone. But then you said it very well. All of that, can be modified based on our lifestyle. What we are exposed to during childhood, and my role as a pediatrician with a focus on adolescent health is really, I say that sometimes to my patient. I really try, my objective is really to make sure that they're healthy for the long run so they can later on, enjoy their hard work, just enjoy, a healthy life, right? So I hope I'm answering to the question. So knowing where your cardiovascular assets, I think really being aware, of those parameters and being able to, I think, through the interface of, health encounter, asking the question when, and then, now we have the electronic health record that allows, to monitor our,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So let's jump in and talk about some of the factors of heart health. And some of the things that are familiar are LDL, bad cholesterol, HDL, good cholesterol. And so, Maureen, can you give us a little bit of, because that's one of the biggest terms, or Dr. Sophie as well, that is a indicator and sometimes confusing of LDL versus HDL. And so either one of you, either Maureen or Dr. Sophie, if you could just clarify for that, clarify the difference, give us about a minute of that clarification.
I'm going to put that on Dr. Sophie.
Okay, absolutely.
My explanation will be a long one.
Yeah. So give us about a minute of that, Dr. Sophie.
Yeah, I mean, I like to be, just very descriptive with patient. We don't really need to make it super sophisticated, right? Or review the textbook of medicine. But, we have different type of lipid. And really, as you said, we have the good one and the bad one. The bad one tend to be the one that are involved in the formation of, you ask, right, Jimmy, atherosclerosis, right? So that's like when there's formation of a plaque along the lining of the blood vessel. And so it narrows the blood vessel and it increase the work of the heart, it increased the blood pressure. So, over time, this is a type of situation that can make the heart tired and can lead to cardiovascular disease. It is a component of cardiovascular.
It basically clogs the heart. The plaque that you referred to, it clogs the heart. Now, can you give it, that's obviously a bad, what is the good cholesterol, the HDL? What does that do?
It's cardioprotective in a sense that it's not associated, with, bad cardiovascular health outcome, right? So it is not involved, in, the formation of plaque and stroke. And so that's really why, it tends to have a better, or at least we use the term cardioprotective, right? But I would not say that you need to have a high HDL cholesterol to prevent, a heart attack. I mean, I think, this is the better one. You'll find it in certain type of food, food that are, like olive oil based, like, plant-based, fish based type of food, tend to have more of the good cholesterol. That's how I would say.
And you just mentioned food. One of the things that comes to mind, and don't mind me, butter, and that term triglycerides. It's just, and that is something that what's the other, saturated fats, and all those other things. And so, can you give us a little understanding? Triglycerides, that's another form of fat as well, right?
Yeah, it's another form. Chemically it is different, and it is also associated, with cardiovascular disease. To put it plainly. And there's a cutoff number based on age and, usually provided, during a medical appointment and to try to maintain the triglyceride within, low level. But, all of that, I would say, again, it really boils down to, healthy food choices, you're mentioning, the butter, the saturated fat, really what we recommend. I think, sometimes I try to avoid, information overload, but really, I think people will remember better, what is good. And I mean, to a certain extent, you have to avoid certain bad things, right? Fast food in general will have more of those, bad cholesterol, but, fish, for instance, nuts, seeds, are healthier in good fat.
Absolutely. We were going to talk about in your model, let's take an asset-based approach. And Maureen, I know you can speak to this here. It's not as, and you're a nurse practitioner, so you got it. But part of the lifestyle that Dr. Sophie was referring to, some good choices, our diet. So
Yeah.
but Dr. Sophie mentioned, healthier types of fish, maybe not necessarily, that fried catfish with a whole bunch of red hot that has a whole bunch of sodium. But let's talk about some ways that we can, women specifically, can eat healthier
Right.
to keep their hearts healthy.
Well, we did mention butter. That's kind of like a no-no. Um, the best choice is to use like the spray butter,
Out of the
sparingly
can, out of the can.
the spray.
Wait a minute, hold
No,
on.
the little, you ever see the spray margarine, the little
Uh-huh.
spray? Yeah, you can limit your amount that way. You don't have to soak the bread, but it does limit the amount. Also limit fat dairy products, fatty meats, um, palm oil, partially hydrogenated oils, and prepared foods, as Dr. Sophie said, fast foods. Try and eat your vegetables. Get at least 3 cups of veggies a day and 2 cups of fruit. People don't think about that. Think about the days you go by and you don't eat vegetables and fruits. Um, Diets high in fruits and veggies can lower your blood pressure and reduce your risk of heart disease. And also, oatmeal is a good choice to reduce your LDL, your bad cholesterol. Um, Whole grain bread, which a lot of people don't choose. They tend to choose the butter bread and the nice tasting soft bread. And you should have at least 6 to 9 ounces of whole grains daily. And along with your diet, you got to think about alcohol, drinking in moderation. Actually, drinking 1 drink a day, a small amount, is not a big deal. But people who binge drink on the weekend don't think that they're drinking a lot because they save it for the weekend. And that's
Can I interject that there was a study that just came out about, and I'm not well versed in it, but there was a study that came out away from cardiovascular health, but I believe that they were saying that you want to monitor if you believe that you're drinking over 7 drinks a week, that may be another contributor to cancer. And so when you just said the alcohol, I just wanted to mention that I saw clips of, that study about just mentioning alcohol. So I wanted to
right,
mention that as
right.
well.
So, I mean, the word diet, think of it. The word diet is in diet. I mean, people that say I'm going on a diet, try and eat healthy every day. Try and modify your diet so you can eat the things that you want in moderation and live. Diet, eat food to live, not to die. The word diet, it's such a bad connotation.
It
Um,
is, because I've never heard someone say that before, that the word dies. Maureen, I'm sorry. Okay. But we can change that. We can change that to live via our diet. And so you did cover, maybe switching from the full-fledged butter.
right.
Is going to low sodium real butter a better, harm reduction? Is that a better choice? Dr. Sophie, don't smile at me.
Yeah, it seems like that one will be hard for you.
Really?
But I just want to add to what Maureen, shared with everyone here. Let's not forget about proteins. Are very important. They are the building block. It's good to balance our nutrition, with protein as well. So vegetable definitively, are rich in protein. An example, beans, chicken, that's a good source of protein. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of the numbers. I mean, it's 10 to 35%, of our daily calorie intake. But, I don't eat, even myself, I don't eat personally with, my scale next to me, right? So we want to see some common sense as well. And we don't want to make it impossible for people, right? That's why I'm not too hung on the numbers. And then, the other big culprit of our lifestyle and cardiovascular disease, I should say, is actually sugar. And a lot of people, Maureen mentioned whole grain bread, may have said whole grain rice, rice with more fiber, essentially, right? This is important because it's sort of like counterbalance, the effect of sugar. I'll tell you, there's a little secret about sugar in our body. Sugar, when we consume it in excess, it actually does get stored, I should say, in fat, right? And this is an evolutionary, system or process that our body has kept. When at a time when we were living from, harvesting season to another, and we didn't have fridge, we didn't have plane and trucks and all of that, people who actually had the best metabolism and were able to store, were able to survive, right, during a period of, the harvesting season. Sorry, but the problem is that our body has not recorded that. Now we do have supermarkets, we do have fridge where we can store, and that it is okay. We don't need to store as much. We'll have enough the following day. But unfortunately, it's still working like that, and so it's really to us to be conscious of that, and be mindful that sugar, can really go very far in terms of cardiovascular disease, and to lower that and to counterbalance that with proteins and fiber.
That was one of the things that I wanted to make sure, because we really covered everything to make sure that folks are aware how to live a healthier cardiovascular lifestyle. One of the things I wanted to say is that, and we started out with this with the mayor, and it's not particularly in our notes. The other two things. One is, and it can play off each other, is stress is a key factor in not just women, but all of our heart health. And I'll ask you to talk about both of these. For some, when you're stressed, one of the first things that you'll do is grab nicotine. And that I do know that it constricts the blood vessels. When you smoke, there's not enough oxygen. And then God forbid if you got the LDL clogged up in the Doc, am I right? So let's talk a little bit, Maureen, maybe if I can ask you to talk a little bit about just paying attention to our stress levels and how that contributes to our health. And then Dr. Sophie, if we can ask you to sort of to end out about the impact of smoking on the hearts as well. And then maybe particularly just reiterate why there's a specific focus. And I'm just thinking about this. There's this notion or narrative that men don't pay attention to their health and you got to make them go to the doctors. But some of our women are busy caregiving, and women don't necessarily, by my experience and growing up with some of the women in my life, let me clarify that, they're the last priority. So Maureen, stress, how it impacts. Dr. Sophie, if you could talk about the impact of smoking, and then end with why there is this focus particularly on women's heart health. Maureen.
Well, we did do a show on stress before. We talked about the healthy everyday stress.
Yep.
And we talked about chronic stress. Chronic stress that involves anxiety, depression, clinical depression, that can contribute, especially in women, to hormonal changes, which increases your cortisol level, which of course can increase your elevated blood pressure. It also can change your diet. A lot of people that are stressed may eat more, which will lead to overweight, obesity, which can elevate your blood pressure, which can lead to heart strain.
Can I go back and also add, there's this, nice notion of, when you break up with someone, all your girls get together and you eat ice cream and cake and whatnot, which is sugar. To the point of what Dr. Sophie said a few seconds ago. So I just wanted to.
If it's just that one time, we'll allow it. But somebody that's really stressed and sedentary and become really sedentary and tend to, their diet changes where they increase, they're not sleeping, lack of sleep deprivation can cause elevated cortisol levels as well. There's also past childhood experiences that like abuse, neglect, also can lead to lifelong chronic stress. Also living in a socioeconomic lifestyle, that you have a limited like healthy foods, that can cause stress. Access to health care, a lot of these things can increase your stress level. The best thing I can say is to give yourself self-care and try and monitor your stress levels. And if it seems that you are falling into that pattern, to seek help, psychological help with a mental health therapist, because a lot of those can lead to cardiac problems, and you don't think about that part, especially the sleep. I can't emphasize enough with sleep deprivation. A lot of people wonder why they can't lose weight. They're trying to do everything, but they're not sleeping. And that is such a big part of maintaining a healthy weight, which of course, overweight, obesity can lead to high blood pressure, which can lead to, it's all like this keeps going.
The cyclicalness, if you will, of one that plays off the other, was interesting. And so I think the real thought in real time is, from food deserts, let's also name that a lot of our community is at risk of losing health insurance. We're still 2 years behind of all type of screenings from COVID. If you can, I name those things because sometimes when we get ready to address our health, we get overwhelmed by going into the system, the inequities and the things that we experience from the healthcare system. My point is, I want to say that we need, please, women, men too, but we're focusing on women today, our sisters, we need y'all to start somewhere. Somewhere, prioritizing yourself, taking that break, because we need y'all. And this, I put myself on screen because a little passionate, emotional here, but I'm sure our clinicians would agree that you had, Dr. Sophie, I'm smoking, and then pick up where I left off about women prioritizing themselves and their health, because it is key. Especially, I've been saying with the holidays coming. Dr. Sophie, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to just quickly add to what Maureen said, and really, first of all, thank you so much, Maureen, for bringing it up. So stress and sleep, super important, right? Because all of that is detrimental to our health and contributor as well. Through altered metabolism, we don't burn as well, as Maureen said, due to lack of sleep when we're under constant stress. So being aware of our mental health, making sure that we're taking care of that. It's not always the doctor. Sometimes, it's being able to have a trustworthy person and being able to talk about it, right? Acknowledge it, knowing when to stop as well, and really indulging ourselves, giving ourselves a break, as you said very well, Ginny. So tobacco, I'm not sure how else to say it, right? I mean, tobacco, just like alcohol, are big culprit, to our health overall. To our cardiovascular disease, cause of cancer as well. And it's mainly, the byproduct of tobacco that are involved in chemical reaction that, do take a role in the atherosclerosis plaque formation, and are sort of like doubling down, right, with other risk factor that we get exposed to, to the rise in blood pressure, increasing the risk of blood clot, in the blood vessel, in the pipe that surround the heart, and causing blockage, right? So I think if there's one thing to remember, it's really that. It's bad. Smoking is bad for your cardiovascular health, through those mechanisms. Then, as far as, young, women in general, right? So I really wanted, to acknowledge that it's important to raise awareness, starting from a very young age, and all along. I alluded to the fact that, there are sex differences that makes us more prone. And I think it's hard for a young woman to project herself, into her 50s or when she's going to be 65, and sort of like change her behavior for her later days, right? But, when we think about even the prospect of future pregnancy, which, a lot of teenagers or young adult, may already be considering, guessing this is just like normal evolution for a lot of young women, not for everyone, to prepare ourselves, to prepare our young, women for healthy pregnancy, right? To prevent, gestational diabetes, prematurity, hypertension related to pregnancy. It is important that us, mother, health professional, and everyone, on this platform really start talking, about this risk, to young women, encouraging young girls to be active, right? To be outside. It feels sometimes that you're stealing time, precious time, to do things that are more important. But actually, if you factor the time that, our young people are spending, on their cell phone, on social media, this is time that
Not just our youth, our old heads too.
that is true. That is true. But, this is time that can be very well used, to have them on their feet, engaging into, age appropriate, organized physical activity. And really, I know this is luxury for some people, the time. Sometimes I tell my families, find a cousin, find, another friend who has a child of the same age, with similar interests, and try to organize carpool. I was only able to work myself and keep my children engaged, through a network of friends, and we were taking each a turn, and I was able to work, nearly full time for many years, and relied on that. So it is possible, right? So really, like, the message I would say for the young woman, it's we really want to optimize their cardiovascular health, pre-pregnancy, and then, to women who are young adult women, who are really facing the prospect of potentially becoming pregnant. I would say, let's debunk certain myths, like the myth that, we're eating for two. No, let's eat healthy for two, let's be on our feet for two, because all of that will improve the risks that are associated with pregnancy that are caused. I watched your previous session with Maureen on the green state of deaths related to pregnancy, maternal deaths,
Yep.
among Black
Yes.
women.
Maternal. Yep.
So
Yep.
this is really a follow-up of that, right? And I do acknowledge the fact that, yes, some of us in the city of Boston and, elsewhere across the country, are facing adversity. But I do hope that, being aware, being educated on the matter will arm, those young women and mother, to flatten the curve, yes.
We haven't heard. I'm sorry, because we haven't heard the flatten the curve since 20. Oh, Jesus, hold on.
Yes.
I just got a little, we're coming up on winter and interesting things at the. Hold on, I'm going to say this and y'all won't be on screen. Interesting things at HHS and the CDC. I'm sorry. So I'm sorry. You said flatten the curve, and I went back about 5 years.
Yes. So I hope, this is helpful, that I address, your question. I mean, I hope it's been informative, for.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
My, and I used to shy away from this, just because, typical conditioning as a man or whatever. But, my biggest population are women ages 35 to 54. And so this is, we've, through our former partnerships with others, I'm glad for my present one with ABCD. But through other partnerships, we've talked about cardiovascular health. We've talked about stress. We've talked about therapy. And so we're a little bit over time, but in the vein of smoking, I had a thought, and I just seen it from a woman in the comments. And so it's, I'm sure Maureen's going to have first of all, my mother answered this, and she just seems to appear to be a little bit too hip. So a question was posed. I was thinking about it when you talked about smoking. We talk about stress. There are some people who alleviate their stress through legal cannabis, PTSD, cancer patients, anxiety, even on the CBD end or whatever. Just anyway. So one of the questions that was asked was that, cannabis, does it have an impact similar to tobacco when you're smoking it? Someone asked the question and then kind of gave a little bit of their own answer or shared their testimony and said, I quit smoking cigarettes in 2017 and I feel so much better. But then they went on to say that it depends on what you smoke the marijuana in. And then my mother chimes in, it's sounding like one of the young people. Blunts or fentanyl leaf. First of all, Ma, I know you got grandsons, and Jesus Lord, I did not need to see that. From a harm reduction standpoint, how do people that consume cannabis, if I may ask either one of you, do it in a healthier manner? Because I know what both of you are going to say. When it comes to Maureen's lips went in, Dr. Sophie nodded her head. I know you're going to say that smoking, period, is not helping. So from a harm reduction, management of stress, people may be going through, chemo and anxiety. Maureen, do we want to move this to after dark? It's a question that was posed in the audience, Maureen. Dr. Sophie, which one? Maureen, no, put herself on mute. Come off of mute, Maureen, and answer my question.
I just noticed I was on mute. I'm going to put this to Dr. Sophie.
Okay.
Just in general, for general purposes. I do have my thoughts about what is healthy as far as cannabis. I know some people do have they have prescribed. And there are some things to be said about pain relief in people with cancer. So I'm going to put it on Sophie's shelf and see if she can say what I am thinking, but limited to say.
Let me also say this, that what Dr. Sophie is about to answer and say by no means is her, on behalf of herself or anybody, encouraging the use of cannabis. Additionally, any disclaimer and the other piece is that anything that Dr. Sophie or Maureen or I have said today, neither of the three of us have examined you. And so this is general 50,000 foot medical information. You should see your doctor. And if you would like more information, just put this plug while we're here about the services that are offered over at ABCD Health Services. Right there in the comments is a hyperlink to ABCD Health Services. So I just need to make that very plain. Dr. Sophie, with where you're comfortable, because you are also associated with the Children's Hospital. So, this again, I know if your press people are watching right now, they're like, oh, Jesus. But Dr. Sophie, in all seriousness, this is a serious subject. And when I have the opportunities to maybe make a little light so we can understand what's going on, to your point of not information overload, if people remember this, they're going to remember the information as well. And so harm reduction, potential ways that if you consume cannabis through smoking, and you may also give maybe some other ways that you may consume if you're coping. I'll leave that there.
I mean, I do not encourage, I do not advise, smoking in any ways. Smoking marijuana has a stress reliever. I really do not. I almost wanted to say, you can do this. You can.
It's the term that we grew up hearing. It's the gateway drug, And I remember hearing that growing up, and that is definitely real, ma'am.
Yeah,
definitely.
You take a walk. You call a friend.
You mean I thought you meant excelling in the other stuff. You mean like don't smoke and just go for a walk.
Yeah. In terms of harm reduction,
yes.
A walk will go you much further. The problem with
You're right.
recreational drug, alcohol is one of them, smoking is one of them, is that they're addictive. Alcohol is addictive, smoking is addictive, whether it's marijuana, whether it's tobacco smoking, it is addictive. When it comes to marijuana, you can get it laced with other substance, and the story goes on, right? So, for me, it's really a no-no. Now, under medical care, we do know that, marijuana can be used, for pain medication as an antiemetic to prevent vomiting, when people are being treated with chemo. But, this is really under control condition. It is prescribed. There are medical indication. But I think we need to challenge ourselves. We need to be creative. We need to reach out to people. I mean, you'll smoke, and you'll still be there, with the same, risk factor, So I think it's really a very short-term relief, for those who, revert to that to address their stress. I really, I don't see any long-term, benefit of it. Yeah, so that's my
Thank you
answer.
for that, Dr. Sophie. It was something that was posed, and I actually had the thought when you mentioned about smoking, that, whether, and there's still comments in here about my mother's comment, whether or how you consuming them, papers and all that other stuff. And so we'll get ready to wrap up here. So our communications folks can stop getting ready to, oh, Jesus. So Maureen, we're going to have to figure a way out either with our partnership with ABCD or someone, because there's now a whole thread going on with questions about edibles and all that other stuff. And so maybe, we can do something in September or in the fall about, this piece here. It's not you guys' particular area of not your particular area of public speaking about it. I'll leave it at that or something, but it's come up, you know what I mean? And so we want to oblige the audience.
Of course. Something on harm reduction would do well. To talk about this.
Yep. And maybe with that understanding of being real where people are. Because with Dr. Sophie, when I came to you with harm reduction, I came with the full thing of harm reduction while consuming. You said
Right.
you want to reduce harm, don't smoke it all and go for a walk. Okay. So that's the truth.
Yeah. Maybe a Java after dark. Yeah.
Yep. Look, I've been getting a few approaches about Java after dark regarding cannabis. So Maureen, we'll get y'all off of here. Maureen and Dr. Sophie, I seriously appreciate both of you. I want to publicly say thank both of you for your sensitivity to the time change. That's our mayor, and schedules are very fluid. And I took these women and Lee and I think Jamie, even though she's on PTO, through a couple of emails, I think after 6 o'clock last night when I got the word that the time changed. So I want to thank both of you for being flexible to help ensure that we got this important information out there, and know that, Dr. Sophie, this information lives evergreen on the internet, on all platforms. So please feel free to go and share it with your patients and whatever. And so thank all of you for being here today. I'm going to go do some behind the scenes stuff with the audience, and Maureen, I will definitely be in touch. And Dr. Sophie, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you both.
Right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Folks, I hope that both sessions today, the one with the mayor as well as the one with Dr. Sophie and Maureen as well, gave you some information about heart health for women, as well as today's session with the mayor was a little bit different. It was a little bit different. I can already see I got a couple of texts and they was like, okay. The accuracy of information, including processes and understanding that a lot of stuff doesn't hit that woman's desk. And I'll say this, even down to the orange man sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Ave. All leaders of entities and movements and activities. Sometimes you don't find out about the bad stuff until it's almost too late. It's on your desk now because your subordinates now know it's either about to hit the media or folks are getting ready to come and dig up in that. So, all right. Ma, thank you. I'm still laughing at you when you're, and I know, I ain't gonna put it all on your grandchildren. Your children kept you educated. And back in the day, I don't know, were they doing frontal back in the day? When I love you, Ma. I'm getting off of here. Thank all of you for being flexible today. For those of you that just tuned in at 10 and wondering what was going on, we started at 9:30 with the mayor. I don't have any announcements, which I'm very happy about, outside of the fact a couple of years ago when GBH canceled Basic Black, a few people, well, about a year and a half ago or so, whatever, they reached out and said, James, you're poised to sort of pick up, the concept of Basic Black. I came up with this concept called Black Java, No Sugar, No Cream. These were in-person recordings only, and Black Thought, Black Convo. And for various reasons, my last one was a year ago. Dart Adams, Mike Dees, Mo Phil, and Taylor Andre, Taylor Andre. And we're having one tomorrow morning, a virtual one. Black Java, no sugar, no cream. And y'all know what no sugar, no cream mean. Now I will say, and Carlos and I was talking about this yesterday, we talking Black Java, and you got two high yellow brother and sister up there. Anyway, we're going to have that conversation tomorrow with Malia Lazu. She's an organizer, and we're going to discuss some Boston politics. I didn't get in too much with the political campaign stuff with the mayor today because the issues were priority, and we still left 3 off. Back to school, White Stadium, mask 4. Back to school, White Stadium, rats, mass and cast. And it just, and you say I had to squeeze the constituent issue in. So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We're back to 10 a.m. tomorrow. We're flexible with the mayor. So, all right, we're going to get ready to go. I will see you all tomorrow morning at, Ma said a little bit of caramel. You know what? I can't. Let me just look at some of the comments. And to everybody that was commenting over on Instagram, I'm so sorry. When the mayor's on, paying attention to the comments will I'll get all off. So I'm not even going to go through the list, but to everybody that was watching, if she's still on, hi Annie. If you all remember, it's funny because I was just talking about Basic Black. Hi Annie. If you all remember, when I was with WGBH, my producer was Annie Sheriff. And I just seen Annie pop on Instagram, and we will forever be connected. That woman taught me so much in any improvement of any tones of journalism you see from me here and there, especially when I was with GBH, is to her tutelage and her mentoring. And so Annie, good to see you in the Java Cafe today. Now, if she left out, that means that she missed all of that. All right, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Sharon, I wanted to bring in White Stadium, particularly the transportation. The other element, there are elements of White Stadium that are a done deal. And not that you don't address community concerns, but there are some things that while you address the concerns, you also be relevant to the things that you can still influence. Transportation with White Stadium right now is a big, that got to be figured out. So Sharon, we'll maybe after dark or something. Also, I did see this, Pastor Marion. Please be aware that warning that Amazon safety recall scam texts are going out, especially to our seniors. Y'all don't click them links and whatnot. Be aware that there's a scam on text right now saying that there's something wrong with your Amazon account or whatever. White Stadium, bottom line. Dina, nope. What did you ask me one day, Dina, and got me in trouble away out there? Josh Kraft. Dina, bye. We're going to get... I love my sister. We're going to get ready to go. We will see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Extreme Flavor Truck is over on Instagram. We mentioned the truck program to the mayor just a few minutes ago. Shout out to Extreme Flavor that is usually down at the W, I think on Friday nights or Saturday nights. I don't have the schedule, but check out the food truck program as well.